Austin, welcome to the show, man. How's it going today? I see the sun is kind of shining there, right? Where are you at?
I'm in Orlando, and yeah, the sun is shining. It's been a little rough. We've had sub-zero temperatures of like 51 lately, but we're hanging in there.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, Austin.
Sure, yeah. So it kind of sounds scattered, and it is, but I'll try my best to connect the dots. I grew up wakeboarding and wanted to become a professional wakeboarder, so that's what I focused on, and that brought me down to Orlando, where because of like a I was doing what's called house hacking from reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's kind of like how I got started in real estate. So I'd find these houses on the lake and I would rent out all the rooms with the goal of getting my rent for free to save up enough money to put on a down payment for a house. So when I was 23 in like April of 2011 at the very bottom of the market, I mean, it was just perfect timing. I got this house in Orlando for like $185,000 that was lakefront with 4 bedrooms and a guest house and a pool and all this kind of stuff. And I was getting paid to live there. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I never really, I just passive income was my whole thing. I was like, yeah, that's passive income. I'm not going to worry about it. So I wakeboarded a lot, really, focused on that. When I started getting out of wakeboarding, I started focusing, I opened up some fitness centers. And it was through there where I was doing what we would call like de novos or new startups that I met my partner to do the real estate selection. I bought another house at the time, residential to live in. I put the old one up on Airbnb. That started doing really well. And then the house I lived at was a duplex, so I rented out the downstairs on Airbnb, which started doing really well. And again, I was just like, hey, passive income. Well, I focused, really hard on the gyms, and then in 2019, I sold those gyms, and that's when he invited me to start working with him on the real estate side. So, at the time, he'd been doing this for like a decade. So I said, yeah, great. So we started doing the site selection for specifically multi-site healthcare groups. So think dental, derm, vet, urgent care, behavioral health, etc. Sub 5,000 square foot locations, and with the goal of buying the real estate when it was available. Because a lot of these multi-site groups, they don't want to buy the real estate. It's a lot more revenue than long-term rentals. So we do like that component. So there's kind of been a split prong approach where we, have been doing the healthcare real estate where we buy and develop. We might buy an existing practice. And then we've also been doing the short-term rentals, which has kind of led to a little bit more luxury properties that you can also host weddings on. So
That's cool.
now we've got a wedding venue and a luxury short-term rental in Orlando, and we've got one in Cleveland, Ohio as well. I've practiced it a lot of times because I don't actually want to get hurt. Like I'm actually one of the more safe guys, believe it or not. And it's kind of the same thing with real estate. It's like, look, when we sat down, my partner and I, and we looked across all the asset classes within real estate, and it's like, what do we think is the safest one? I mean, if you look at the SBA data, dental has like the lowest default rate out of almost every business. And so, there's just a need for healthcare. I think like maybe to preemptively address the pushback, you might say, well, what about digital doctors and everything that's going online? And yeah, that's all true. Like that
Digitally
might
correct my teeth, though, right, Austin?
well, exactly. Like you're never going to get a digital haircut. You know what I'm saying? You're never
Yeah.
going to get a virtual surgery.
Yeah.
So there's just look, there's going to be we're going to have increased needs for healthcare. Both are going to increase, in fact. But like there's more and more of a push towards the retail spaces because it's just easily accessible by the consumer. So I think that by one token, you've got a building, which if your listeners are on here, they've already kind of sold on the concept of real estate. But like you're probably not going to lose money. You'll at least get your money back, which is not ideal. You want to make a return on it, but like you've got a building, which is an asset that you can sell. So when you build something, you're providing value. When you purchase something, you've got something of value, all the commodities and labor and everything that went into it, as well as the land. In addition to that, when you're putting in a tenant that has good credit that can pay the lease, like if you sign a long-term lease with a mom and pop hair salon, are they going to be there 10 years? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But that's why we focus on healthcare because they're so much more sticky. They're such a sticky tenant, and it's unlikely that they go out of business. And in particular, multi-site groups, right? You've got a 30, 40, $100 million organization signing on to these leases. That they're not going to default on the lease. So that's kind of what I spend a lot of my time doing is just creating relationships with these multi-site groups and figuring out how can we be of service to you by doing the real estate. So we work on getting the assignments, whether it's for a sale leaseback, which just means we're buying an existing location. They're already there. They just don't want to be the landlords anymore. Or most of the times it's doing a new construction development. I was just having this conversation yesterday with a tenant, a client of ours, because it's like we look back at how much real estate has gone up since 2019, and it sucks. Like it's really high. But just to put things in perspective,
You
Let's
mean
imagine for
construction? How much
yeah,
construction has
construct
gone up?
well,
Yeah,
land too, like
yeah,
land,
yeah.
construction, labor, supplies, materials, cost of capital, like literally
Everything.
everything is up. And so
Yeah.
now the price per square foot is really high. But let's look at that differently and let's imagine real estate was the same cost. Well, there would be a lot more competition. And so people are, especially the larger retailers, they are paying the bigger rents. It's just the way things are. But as a result, there's less competition coming online. So it's just a trade off. So I would think that what I would say is like, if you're thinking about developing it, like that, I believe I have high confidence you'll get it filled. And the second thing for the physicians listening is like, yeah, if you want to do a new practice, you want to expand, you want to relocate, it's going to be expensive, but it's going to be worth the juice is worth the squeeze because not as many people are doing it. So, you can start to, I don't know how far along you are, but like definitely the first step is always the entitlements. So that's fun, going and talking to the zoning, and then you have to get your environmental studies and your impact studies and that sort of thing. But you kind of want to get the tenants in tow before you do that. And so really, I don't know much about your area in particular. Like the way that we've kind of historically worked is we'll just we'll get the assignment from the tenant. Like if they say, hey, we want to go to the northeast corner of Houston, Texas. Okay, then we start doing our analysis there. We try and find the trade areas within the northeast corner of the Houston, Texas, and get more specifically, we try and find like the crossroads, and then it's trying to find something for their business. If nothing's available, we'll buy it, we'll develop it. So that's historically how we've always done it. We are starting to do a little bit more speculative development, and so either way, it's a challenge. Like, but that way, the challenge is going to be finding the tenants to fill it because there's a lot of people who want to go there, but you're kind of blending getting the tenant with the best credit, and that could take a long time. If you're going to do retail, you can kind of start you're going to have to hire an architect, and like they're going to have to tell you how many square feet you can get. And you can kind of start, I mean, you're going to have to, like, these are some of the due diligence costs that are not refundable. And that's another reason why, like, a lot of these buildings are so expensive because there's projects that don't work that you lose money on. And so, you've got to it's got to be a home run in order to entice developers to go out and start spending money on due diligence costs on sites that don't have a guaranteed outcome. So yeah, you kind of got to like, it's always a chicken or the egg situation. But you kind of have to start like hiring architects to kind of see exactly how much square footage you could fit on there. Do you have to have a retention pond or anything like that? You do your ALTA studies, and your environmental impact studies. And then at the same time, you kind of want to start doing both. Kind of want to start sharpening a tenant, but you don't want to go like too detailed on the architectural plans before you really have a tenant in mind, because a BP, as an example, like is going to be way different than Starbucks, in terms of what's required and how the build out is.
BP, like a gas
Gas
station?
station, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
sometimes these retail places, gas stations want to be there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like
Cool.
you want to kind of do the minimum that you can before you really have a tenant. Like, because architectural designs, like, they cost a lot of money. I mean, you can have verbal conversations with the city and see, are they open to this kind of thing, and they'll give you a pretty good idea. Like they might just tell you straight up, hey, no, we're not going to allow a gas station right here. But they could say, yeah, we'll allow a retail dentist or a healthcare group or whatever. And then you can kind of at least start building out the shell or seeing how many square footage you can fit on there.